Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Gloves Off Insider Secrets. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and I've been really excited about doing this because the bottom line is we tend to go through life and then just look and talk about the pretty stuff. And nobody really gets down and dirty and talks about the stuff that almost breaks us. Not in a realistic way, because the bottom line is you see all these Instagram influencers and they make it sound like it was pretty and it was easy. But I'm not going to tell you that fluffy story. I'm going to tell you the real truth. Recently, I had a flood in my apartment and I had to move rather quickly. And of course, from the outside, it looks like I handled everything really well. I got a new place, I've moved in, made lots of decisions really quickly. But the reality is, it's not that easy. And I want to talk about the things that really were hard during this thing, what it cost me, what it's like to move through a crisis, what it is like emotionally, financially, logistically, because it's actually not easy. And if you've ever wondered how people move through a crisis really quickly, well, I'd love to just unpack what happens behind the scenes because there's really a lot that goes on. So, just to give you a little bit of context regarding the timeline. So, the first thing was it was January 8th, and there was a flood in my apartment. In that moment, it happened. Of course, I was sick. I was trying to go to bed early, and this flood happens. There was a pipe burst that outside of my apartment flooded, more than half of my apartment. Okay, so at that moment, I was like, whatever, they can fix it, not a big deal. Well, then interestingly enough, 2 days later, meanwhile, we were without water this whole time, so that part wasn't fun. So 2 days later, 3 a.m., Sunday morning, it floods again. This time the flooding was much worse. I'm awake again in the middle of the night trying to get rid of all the water. In that moment, I thought to myself, I don't think I can live here anymore. But I hadn't made that decision yet. So, I move, I leave. Luckily, I had a place to stay. I find a place to stay. I leave. I was displaced for almost 2 weeks, actually, for this. But in the meanwhile, while being displaced, and I have to tell you that being displaced is very disorienting. I did not realize how disorienting that could be, but just hopping from place to place to place, not having all my things, not knowing where anything was, feeling stressed because I don't, have my own place, etc. All of that felt very, very disorienting. So then a few days into this, I decided that I needed to move because I could tell that they weren't going to rip up the floors. I knew they weren't going to rip up the carpets. There was a significant health and mold risk. And that was when I said, okay, I have to move. I didn't really want to move, honestly, because I just moved into that place 7 months ago. And the last thing I wanted to do was move again. So it's interesting how the timeline very quickly unfolded because then I just decided I was going to move. And then it's like everything just went very fast. So I decided to move, and the leasing agent that, showed me my old place, the one that I was moving out of, contacted me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about the flood. Are you guys okay? Et cetera, et cetera. She had moved to a new building. Well, right then and there, I thought she invited me to come look at it. And within days, I fell in love with the new building. I fell in love with the new apartment. But it wasn't all fun and games because there was a lot of logistics to manage before I actually moved. So in that moment, this was less than a week after the flood, I had started to make preparations to move. I'm trying to still, honestly, I gave up on creating content because I just wasn't in the space. So I had to honor my own mental and emotional well-being. I was just doing what I had to do and just found a place and decided to make all the arrangements to move. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute because it was, it felt like a lot. And I just went through it and just did it all, arranged for people to help me pack, arranged for people, obviously the movers, organizing, all of the logistics because I was dealing with my old apartment complex. I was dealing with the renter's insurance. I was actually contacting attorneys because they didn't really know how this was all going to pan out. Not because I'm litigious, but I was really worried about the whole mold situation. I still am, but that's a whole different situation. So the bottom line is it takes a lot to have this kind of decisiveness under pressure. Most people don't have that ability. And I think because I was a surgeon, that's another translatable skill that carried over. I mean, obviously, I was dealing with life and death situations, so decisiveness under pressure comes sort of easily for me. I was trained that way for so many years. But a lot of people will get stuck in that because they will second guess themselves. They haven't developed the clarity in their own voice. They haven't developed the skills to make decisions under pressure because they may feel that those decisions are happening maybe from a ungrounded place too quickly, et cetera, et cetera. But that ability has come from me over years of being trusting myself to make decisions quickly and effectively and efficiently. So that's just how I operate. And I'm very good in a crisis. So it's interesting. I'm constantly seeing how these skills as a surgeon have translated into my everyday life in many, many situations. So then let's talk about financial preparedness because that's another big issue because you can't make these decisions if you don't have some sort of buffer to maybe, work less hours, buffer to have the financial safety to make decisions because I had a significant outlay of cash. I had already paid for my own apartment. Then I was paying for other places to stay, extra food costs, everything, because I wasn't preparing food. I wasn't eating normally. It felt so disorienting because I'm a person that likes a lot of structure in my life. Now, I have routines. I have the way I like to eat. I have the way I like to work out. All of that just felt very disorienting to say the least. So again, this is what I talk about in life by design, because if you don't have this financial buffer, you cannot make decisions like that because your decisions are going to be limited. The other thing I realize is that I don't have any attachment to material things anymore. I think that comes from the fact that I have a clear sense of my own identity. My identity seems to change quite quickly because I've actually looked at my life over the past 8 years. I have moved a lot. I mean, I moved from my divorce. I've moved probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 times. I think I lost count in about 8 years. It's a lot. During those moves, I realized that every time I moved, there was a different identity. There was different stuff I decided to keep. There were different things, different ways I wanted to create my space every single time. And it's evolved quite drastically from my marital home to where I live right now. So I've become very unattached to material items. The things that I treasure are not furniture and little things, and they're things that hold memories, things that hold memories of my children, family, those kind of things, obviously important documents. The rest, I'm like, well, it comes, it goes, it doesn't really matter to me. So let's talk about the ability to act while you're stressed, because capacity builds over years. It doesn't build over days. And, speed in crisis is kind of pre-built. So when you have a crisis, you have to have had some sort of ability to deal with crises in the past. And I have had more than my fair share, more than I probably, I feel like that could be another episode of Gloves Off, but, from my cancer, divorce, things that other people go through, of course, too. But for whatever reason in my life, things tend to happen and they stack up quickly in short periods of time, which really tests my capacity. I guess I'm kind of grateful for it now because I have a large capacity. But then it was really interesting because what did that flood really show me? Sometimes you think everything's fine. And I thought everything was fine. I just moved into a new place. I lived in Little Italy and I was downtown and I was really enjoying my life. And, I didn't think anything was wrong. But water kind of shows you what maybe is lurking under the surface. So when this flood happened, I saw that the building that I was living in really didn't have a disaster plan. I'm really big on policies and procedures. I mean, I've built businesses, practices, all those things. They did not have a proper emergency plan. So then everybody was trying to figure out what to do. And it was it was a shit show, for lack of a better word. And I'm not a big fan of shit shows. So right there, I saw that there's a broken system. And then the way they handled everything after I didn't, there wasn't a lot of compassion for the things that the residents were going through. We had no water for 6 days. So that revealed a lot to me. And then those were things that I couldn't unsee. And then let's talk about friendships and things. Very, very shocking. But people who I thought were my close friends didn't even check up on me, didn't even ask me how I was. Oh, one of them actually just stalked all my Instagram stories, but never even reached out. I was thinking, wow, that's alarming, but okay. I've been through things before, so I've just learned to move with the times. But then people who I thought were kind of acquaintances really showed up for me. And then I realized that sometimes it's not the people who you think are really your friends that are the ones that maybe you should be closer to. It's the ones that really show up for you, the ones that have capacity. So then I realized that it doesn't make those people bad people. They just don't have the capacity to be there for other people. And why? Because they're overwhelmed with their own life. And that's what I saw, that the people who didn't reach out, they were overwhelmed with their own life. They couldn't handle it anymore because their whole life is overwhelming. But the people who had capacity weren't overwhelmed with their own life. And I guess that's the kind of person that I want to be around, because I'm not overwhelmed with my own life. Even in crises, I could still be there for other people when they need me. And that's something that I will never give up, because that's really, really important to me. So friendship systems failed that I thought were there. Again, the apartment building, that was a system that was kind of faulty. Then I was part of this networking club, and I saw some things there that I wasn't really appreciating. There were some things that were agreed to. Then they changed, of course, because I had to change the date of my event, because I had to postpone my event, because I had to honor me, my own clarity, my own emotional stuff, what I was going through. I had to just deal with that. And I had people who told me that I should push through it because so many of us are stuck in hustle mentality. I had people reach out to me telling me that, oh, it's just fear showing up about your event. No, it wasn't fear. It was the fact that I had to honor my internal state. I can't put together a proper event in the emotional state that I was in. So I postponed it, because that's what I needed to do to make sure that I could, when the time was right, to do the event in the way that I want. So it's important not to let other people dictate what you should do, your internal state, how you need to move forward in this world. So physical loss can really create some clarity around things, because I felt like the water in and of itself just showed what was hidden. But then there were financial costs, emotional costs that I want to talk about too. The stress of being displaced, there were so many rapid fire decisions that I had to make. I was really having decision fatigue. It's really a thing. I forget who wrote that book and talked about it, but it's really a thing. I had to make so many rapid fire decisions, and I was literally fatigued, even though I'm very good at making decisions. The stress of being displaced, not having my own stuff. My dog was stressed because he doesn't know what's going on, of course. So there was a lot going on there. There's a real familiarity and safety that you have, obviously, being home. My nervous system definitely was dysregulated. I don't think I really understood it until after the kind of crisis had passed, because I just wasn't sleeping well. My focus was all over the place. My bandwidth was running low. My body was holding stress. Even when I was functioning, I was trying to work out, but I tried, but just, I did the best I could. Financial strains. I had a massive outlay of cash that I wasn't expecting. There was time, energy cost. I lost productivity. I lost my creativity. I couldn't be creative. That's why I didn't do Gloves Off. I didn't force myself to do that. I didn't force myself to host an event, because when I do something, I got to show up fully. I don't want to show up half-ass. And that's just not how I do things. There were probably opportunity costs. There were, so many things that, honestly hit at the same time. So I guess, from the outside, it really looks to other people, that people like me, because I've got this all the time. How'd you move so fast? Oh my God, look at you. Like you just managed it so well. It really looks like there was no impact, maybe, to other people. And that's the myth that I want to really talk about, because There was a significant impact. And I really didn't realize the impact until things slowed down and I got settled into my new apartment. Overall, I'm very, very grateful because I wound up in an apartment building that I like more than the one I was in. It's in a great location. I have a beautiful, beautiful view. I watch the sun rise in the morning. I watch the sun set in the evening. I could have never imagined that I could have even had this. It just happened. But, as much as I'm so grateful, I'm still, honestly, I'm still not in the right, most perfect place yet because it was a lot of emotions moving very quickly through me. But I am grateful. And, would I do it again? I don't know. I mean, it was a lot, but I think probably ask me a month from now, I'll say yes. And the reality is this: many high performers will normalize this emotional dysregulation. Again, as evidenced by the people who reached out to me and told me that, oh, fear is stopping you. Oh, just move through it, push through it. Hello, people. This is the exact hustle mentality that I'm working against with Life by Design. I am not into hustle mentality. I want people to honor what is going on in them. Move things if need be. Stop hustling. Stop hustling for money or what you think that people should be doing. Because when you stop hustling for money, it's amazing what starts to change in your life when you do things from a place of clarity, not about money. Just, obviously got to cover your costs and stuff. So, to be honest, even with my event, I changed even the way that I want to host it. It's interesting because, I was putting together something very large and grand, and I think I really want to take it small scale and more intimate because something kind of opened up in me after all of this emotional turmoil that I want it to be a real intimate emotional space. I don't want it to be this big thing. So, you know what? Some clarity really came out of the crisis, that's for sure. So then let's talk about why people can stay stuck longer than they should. And this is a compassionate truth because I think when people look at my life and I move fast, I make changes, I make big, bold decisions, they don't know how I do it. It isn't easy, but I do it because I can't stay stuck. For me in particular, staying stuck is worse than dealing with the consequence of moving forward, even though it's hard. I think that's just in my DNA. But most people are stuck in their own comfort zone. They have decision paralysis. They have financial fragility. And I want to just talk about that for a minute because there's a difference between real financial fragility and perceived financial fragility. When I was in my ENT practice, I was making a lot of money. I felt more financially fragile then than I do now. So that's really interesting to me because I'm not making the kind of money I was then. And one of the things that really annoys me, I've got to just say this. There are so many people out there on social media talking about, oh, create this 7-figure business. Do you know 7 figures a year is a lot. You can really have a fabulous life on much, much less. I had gotten very attached to these big numbers as a sense of my own self-worth and all of this over the years. And, even when I left medicine, I was, oh, I want to just make this much. I want to make that much. I need that much to feel safe. You know what, folks? Financial fragility or lack thereof is an insider job. When you feel safe internally, you can actually feel way safer with less money. So I'm just throwing that out there. That might be a topic for another day that I want to dive deeper into. But anyway, so, there's the financial fragility that keeps people wanting to stay safe. There's the emotional overwhelm, even people who have people around them, who have spouses, who have partners, they get they get overwhelmed very emotionally. I also felt very overwhelmed emotionally, but I had only myself to lean on and obviously some really good friends, thank God. Their nervous system freeze. I mean, most people's nervous system freezes when it's time to make a big change. I don't know. My nervous system doesn't freeze. I may pay the consequences later, but I move forward. there's a lack of bandwidth too. So this is not judgment. This is just different capacity levels. And I just want to point it out. So if people don't understand, if you are out there and you don't understand why maybe it's hard to move forward, maybe that'll give you some clarity. And honestly, I'd love to hear your comments, feedback, anything you want to hear more about, because I love processing my life, taking the time to be intentional, seeing what happened, putting together why it happened, what I could learn from it. I enjoy that. So here's the best part of it though. Now, right now, I'm in the process of designing my new space, designing the next version of my life. And maybe, just maybe, this was all supposed to happen this way so that I could have a different life, one that was way better than I even could have imagined. I mean, that's the part that shocks me the most. Yes, I'm very good at seeing the positive in everything. I'm a very half glass full kind of person, the silver lining person. I'm all of those things. But let me tell you, in moments, it was pretty hard. But I really know that I don't think I would have gone looking. I don't know that this would have I don't know if I would have found it if I went looking for it, right? So now I get to create and intentionally redesign my space to feel into it, to design it in a way that supports my nervous system, supports the next version who I feel like I'm about to be in this space. And really who I am now, because I don't even think I'm the same person that I was a month ago. So I guess the flood just accelerated some necessary changes. It was disrupting me as a point of reset. And overall, I know that it was a good thing and it had to happen, but it had some costs. I'm not going to lie. So anyway, I hope this was helpful because I think most people out there tell you all the fluff, tell you all the great things. Like there are some influencers I see that like show their crisis stories and like, oh my God, now I have a G-Wagon and I'm so super famous. I've got 100 million followers and you're like, I just believed in myself and I just, believed in spirituality and here I am. I don't know. See, to me, that just doesn't translate because they don't ever really talk about the down and dirty in depth. Yes, they post about it, but I want to hear the depth of the crap that happened, what they got through, how they got through it. And this is what I hope to, share with everybody as I go through things. So, it's important to remember that crisis does always have a cost. You can do everything right and still feel the impact. The goal isn't really like zero disruption. The goal is faster recovery, less long-term damage. And, the bottom line is how to mitigate that damage is really different for all people. For me, I just need to get my space looking and feeling the way I need it to, feeling organized, aesthetically pleasing. It needs to feel good for me. So that's major. So in the past 2 weeks, I've redecorated my whole place, got rid of things that don't feel right in this space anymore, gotten new stuff, doing whatever I had to do to make it feel right. For other people, it may be something else, but that's just a me thing. And I need things very, very ultra organized. No, I don't have OCD, but I like things organized. I'm a surgeon. It's organization that's very, very important to me. So also it's important to note that regulation determines how long you kind of stay down, and your environment, the people you're around, the things you're surrounded by matters way more than you might actually think. And you can actually rebuild quickly, but still honor the toll. So if any of you is in some sort of crisis right now, the best advice that I could give you is to focus on what stabilizes you first. And that isn't the same for everybody. For me, I kind of need time alone to process and integrate and all of that. I do social things too, but I have to keep those to a minimum because I just can't till I feel perfectly all right. And I just feel like I'm emerging out of the little bit of the cocoon state. But, again, everybody's different. It's important to honor what you need and how you rebuild. And, if you don't rise in a crisis, I'm sorry, if you often crisis will actually reveal what's already built, kind of the foundation. So if you already have a good foundation, it's more likely that you're going to rise from it and be fine. If your foundation is shaky, it'll probably unravel way more. So I hope you enjoyed this. I mean, I just wanted to basically talk about really what has happened, how I got through it. I would be open to any questions that you have, because my goal is really to help other people handle these things more effectively, because life is tough sometimes. It throws some curveballs at you, big ones. And the more we talk about and honor the things that happen, the more we honor it truthfully, I think really society as a whole will benefit from it. And, this is, for me, this is all life by design. Yeah, I go with the punches and then I design what I really want. So, anyway, gloves off, insider secrets, another episode, and I can't wait to share more of this vulnerability with you, because that's been something I've been challenged to work on, and I love doing it with all of you on the air. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Happy to hear comments and questions, and I'll see you on another episode of Gloves Off Insider Secrets.